So the primary purpose of undertaking this research was really to hear from farmers. What types of crime were they facing and what concerns do they have, and really what do they think that we could do about it. We do have a pretty good stock of research and data and literature available on farm crime, but it was time to really update that research. There's been a lot happening in the field of rural crime, rural criminology, as well as responses to crime generally in rural spaces. And so this allowed us an opportunity to take stock of those changes as well, not only to hear about the types of issues and concerns that the farmers were having and their victimization experiences, but as well issues around their perceptions of criminal justice, police, and what was, I guess, particularly novel about this brand of research was looking at their interaction and engagement with this new rural crime prevention team that has been around since about 2018. So some great opportunities there to hear back from farmers, not only on kind of what the problems are, but what has improved and perhaps what we could do a little bit better. So I think what is especially significant about this research is that it puts the farmer's voice at front and center. We're asking farmers about their experiences of victimization, about their perceptions of issues related to crime and criminal justice, as well as trying to listen to them about some tangible solutions to these problems. I mean, they're on the ground, they're experiencing these issues, so who better to ask? And so we're really lucky, and I think that's a significant part of this research, is the sheer amount of information and feedback that the farmers gave us that allows us to kind of parse through this data for the primary purpose, which is to develop a sound and research-informed policy to try to address these issues that farmers are facing. In New South Wales, farmers experience extremely high levels of victimization. 81% of farmers reported being victimized and being a victim of crime in the past. The primary offences that they experience are trespass, along with illegal shooting and hunting, and the theft of livestock. One area that is rather worrisome, but we tend to not pay as much attention to it as actual crime, is worry about crime and the kind of psychological and consequential physiological effects that can come from that on individuals. And farmers express a great deal of concern around crime, specifically around crime in general, and then of course on those specific crimes that they tend to be victimized most. So they worry a great deal about trespass, illegal shooting and hunting, stock theft, as well as break and enter into their farms. What was really, I think, interesting for us, as I said, is it granted us an opportunity to sort of assess and ask farmers about some of these developments that had been happening in the rural crime and policing space. And one of those was with the rural crime prevention team. And so we're able to ask farmers' perceptions on police generally, and then as well as their experience specifically with this rural crime prevention team. And so I think what was really significant that came out of that is we can see that when farmers actually engage and interact with this rural crime prevention team, not only did they have very positive experiences in that regard, but they also have greater satisfaction with the police generally. And I think most importantly in combating farm crime period is that these individuals that had contact with the rural crime prevention team are also much more likely to report crime. Now, hypothetically and theoretically, I would suggest that this indicates higher degrees of confidence in this particular policing unit. That is, they understand with much more nuance the issue of farm crime and some of its particulars, perhaps more so than your average officer would. And I think farmers get a sense of being seen and heard by this particular policing team. And we can't underestimate the value of being seen and heard. Crime and criminality is not always about solving the issue. That would be fantastic if we could solve every crime. And of course, the ideal case scenario in rural spaces would be to prevent farm crime from happening and increasing the capacity to respond to farm crime. But I think a really important part of it from a community policing standpoint as well is that when farmers experience these types of crimes, they want to be able to report to a police force that hears them and also understands them. Something as very basic as the economic impact and psychological impact of such crimes, that farm crime victimization is serious and deserves to be heard and deserves to be followed up. So the report was quite all-encompassing. I mean, we asked farmers 88 questions and they had the patience to sit down and respond to us, which we thought was absolutely fascinating. But I think first and foremost, we see some issues that we know that are there. They don't seem to be getting particularly better. That is, farmers experience very high rates of victimization. I think one of the perhaps most surprising findings for me especially was just the sheer amount of repeat victimization. I mean, I knew anecdotally, speaking with farmers and speaking with the police, that there is a lot of repeat victimization in these communities, but I think inwards and around 30% of farmers experiencing victimization 7 or more times, and upwards of 80% being victims on more than one occasion. I think that signals a serious issue and something that we most definitely need to focus on. So the logical next step is to follow up on many of the problems that have been identified in this research project, and to try to address the victimization of farmers and try to prevent this altogether. So the Centre for Rural Criminology is very well positioned to do this, particularly in collaboration with those with a vested interest in farm crime prevention and rural crime and rural criminology more broadly. So we have a number of research projects in the works covering new technological advancements in farm crime prevention, specifically in the stock theft space, as well as focusing in rural policing, broadly speaking, and on more specific issues such as trespass and biosecurity and illegal hunting. So we hope through this forthcoming research to try to have tangible outcomes and solutions to many of the problems raised here in this research.